Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the GDL podcast. My name is Zoe. I'm a motion capture technician and a brand new host here at GDL. Just before I get on to the guest portion of today's episode, I want to talk to you a little bit about motion capture and how it works for any of our listeners who may be slightly unfamiliar with the process. What probably comes to mind when you think of motion capture is an image of an actor in a suit covered in what looks like ping pong balls. What those actually are retroreflective markers. And what this means is that if you shine a light at them, they will reflect that light directly back at its source with minimal scattering. Motion capture cameras aren't like ordinary video cameras either. They produce infrared light, which is invisible to the naked eye, but is reflected back at those cameras by markers set up on actors or props. Motion capture works by setting up an array of these cameras at high, mid, and low points around a three-dimensional space within which you want to capture motion. This is referred to as a capture volume. Through this process, the position of each and every one of those markers as it moves through the volume can be tracked. In order for those positions to be recorded accurately, multiple cameras need to be able to see each marker. This is essentially triangulation. The way these markers are set up varies from studio to studio, but in general, they cover the head, chest, waist, arms, legs, hands, and feet, as well as the joints. Depending on the client's needs, there are also options to include fingers, props, and even facial expressions if you're using a head-mounted camera or HMC. The data produced from a capture session is then combined with a 3D character model in a virtual space. The motion data is essentially used to drive the character, and the resulting animation can then be plugged into whatever media piece it was created for. Motion capture systems are incredibly accurate and can track position changes in these markers down to the millimeter. They produce natural, realistic motion that would be very difficult or too time-consuming to hand animate. There are a wide range of uses for motion capture data. While it's most often found in games, film, TV, and animation in general, there are also medical applications for motion capture. And of course, these studio systems are just one way in which motion capture is produced. There are new systems emerging that remove the need for markers at all, and therefore the studio restriction. Without that restriction, you can do motion capture anywhere. As these technologies emerge and improve, motion capture will be more and more available to a broader range of creators. It's a really exciting piece of technology that I'm happy to see being more involved in the game dev pipeline. If you're curious about motion capture, get online and check out behind the scenes and making of videos. You'll find a diverse application of motion capture in more media than you might think. With all that said, let's get on to the guest portion of today's episode, in which I'm joined by Neil Newbon, a motion capture performer with over a decade of experience in the craft.
Cool.
All right, so welcome to this episode of the GDL podcast. This is my first ever episode, and today I'm joined by Neil Newbon, mocap actor extraordinaire.
Hi.
Neil, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, this is your first stream, and you made a terrible choice in inviting me on to the first one. But anyway, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. I am a performance capture actor, voice actor. I worked in TV and film as an actor before. I've been acting for 20 years. I've been in performance capture for 10 years. And voiceover as well, and it's been an amazing experience actually, especially games. I do a lot of work in games as well as TV and film still. But yeah, I've found a whole new way of working as an actor, a whole new way of engaging with craft. Audio motion, in fact, that's how we know each other from.
Yes.
Gave me my very first job. Brian Mitchell and Stacey Boiselle gave me my very first job, so huge props and huge shout out to the amazing studio. And I've been lucky enough to travel the world with my work, which sounds crackers when you're working inside a sometimes 2x2 meter volume or a 20x10 volume or whatever, that I would travel the world with it. But actually it's given me an incredible experience to go to Los Angeles and Japan on multiple times, and even South Africa, or all across Europe, to all these different amazing volumes and meeting these people and working with them. It's been a trip. It's been great. I specialize in multi-role character work, which is like playing multiple people in one scene, or playing a main character and a supporting character, or playing a main character and then doing a whole bunch of world building stuff as well in the same project. Lucky enough I'm a martial artist and weapon trained, so I do a lot of combat and stunts stuff, which is great. And I also have got my teeth into consulting now, and also sort of co-producing through my production company. And we also now train people, performers, actors, stunt performers, even animators as well, actually, and directors come to us. And we teach them the technology and teach them the tech of performance capture so they can bring their own craft into it. So it's been amazing. Yeah, I've had a great time.
Yeah, that's quite an illustrious career.
It's been good, yeah.
Like you said, the Brian and Stacey got you into your first
Yeah,
job,
yeah.
but like, how did
Indeed.
that come about? Like, how did you even
Uh,
think mocap was, something you wanted to
yeah,
do?
there's actually a story about this kind of. So I've always been a gamer. I've been a gamer since I was, I don't know, 8 years old, and a massive geek when geekery was not cool. Whereas now it's like the age of geek, so
Yeah.
I'm embracing it. Whereas when I was a kid, the age of geek was not even like, that wasn't even hope. Like it wasn't even a hope that there would be an age of geek. So for me, it was like playing in my room and playing with friends on games and stuff was just like a dirty little secret. So anyway, I was a gamer. And about 10 years ago, I've got gum, so I'm going to take the gum. I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it's going, yeah, about 10 years ago, I was doing a lot of really cool work and a lot of really nice, fun indie projects. And I was on like the first Hammer House, a horror film for like 30 years, which was called Beyond the Ray with Jamie Dornan, amongst other people. And I was broke, man. I was like doing a lot of catering and with an amazing company for catering, but not having a great time doing it. And I kind of was reading a magazine. I just came across voice acting, which I thought, well, I should get into that because obviously I'm an actor and my voice is pretty versatile. And with it was actually a very small piece on motion capture at Audio Motion, I believe. And I saw it and I went, well, that to me looks like theatre mixed with film. So that I understand completely. I understand both worlds. I've worked in both worlds. So I started in theatre. So I just wrote I'm pretty sure I wrote to Brian actually, and Stacey, and just said, hi, looks kind of cool. I'm doing this stuff. This is my background. Here's my show reel. I have no knowledge of motion capture, but I'd love to give it a try. And here's my additional skill sets as well. And I was just very lucky that they were great champions and really sweet. And they brought me in and they gave me the opportunity to try and audition for Ghost Recon Future Soldier. And I loved it. And the first day was a bit like, what do I do? Because there was nobody trained us then. It was just like, you got in there, they gave you good advice and you just sort of went for it. So obviously it's a bit more technical, but that was the kind of feeling of, okay, we'll just, what do I do? So it was a really, really good experience, about 2-3 weeks of work, I think 2 weeks of work. And it gave me a crash course into mocap and I just completely fell in love with it. Yeah. I was very lucky to have some amazing people. Colin Ling actually was joined at that period of time, Audio Motion. Right. And they were become very good friends. And through that experience, I realized what the future was. And talking to people, obviously, yeah. I mean, especially Brian, who's been working for years in it. You suddenly saw the potential of it. And I realized that far from being in a super niche market that was just going to be a random thing that you did every now and again, it was going to become bigger and bigger because why wouldn't it be? It's authentic, it's natural, realistic movement. It's very fast to produce that amount of animation. Also, animation in itself was going to get more developed. Everybody knew that obviously software was going to get better. Rendering of people and creatures were going to get better. So you'd need more nuanced performances. So for an actor like me, it was like, this is the best of theatre, the best of film, and it's going to get better as each generation of software and computer and console and blah, blah, blah comes out. It can only get better. So for me, I just saw this is the way forward. This is the new thing. And I was very lucky that at the time, nobody wanted to do it apart from about 10 of us or 12 of us, of which there's only about 2 or 3 still working, I believe, from that original time. And we were lucky. There was no competition really apart from like who can do that role the best, and we all worked together. It was very collaborative. Yeah. And we just got all this work in, this huge workload, and it was great fun. And no actors wanted to touch it with a barge pole. They actually had people telling me not to do it, like it was going to destroy our careers and stuff. Only because they couldn't see what we could see, which was this is the future, and this is another form. This is another acting craft form. In the same way that I'm sure TV and film was knocked when it first, film certainly was laughed at because it was just about televising plays. But obviously the pioneers of that saw that. And I'm glad to say that I've been amongst those kind of like mocap pioneers that saw where it was going, and I got carried with that motion. And it's been a really amazing experience. And of course, now it's very known, it's very out there. People talk about it. A lot of people are very aware of motion capture and performance capture specifically. Yeah. And a lot of actors try and get into it. So I'm grateful enough to still be working concurrently as a performer, but also now in a position where I can mentor people. As somebody still very much involved in the industry day to day, it's also great to be able to help new actors or younger actors as well, who want to, blaze their trail through into this side of the industry. So it's a real honor actually to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that, you know, for the new actors and stuff, as you get more of the high profile actors wanting to get involved in like performance capture and stuff, is that something that you think people worry about, like when they're trying to get into it, if they're a little bit more on the unknown side? Like
I always have maybe this is really either terribly naive or just a bit nuts. I always view that there's no competition when you go into an audition apart from yourself.
Yeah.
You're just in an audition to present your work. That's all it is. It's not about, you don't have the job. The job is not going to get taken away from you. It's just about presenting your work. And if it works with what their vision is and you like them as much as they like you, because you're going to work together, then you're going to get the gig. It's a certainty as long as you do work. When it comes to people like with massive, huge celebrity statuses and stuff, unless you're like on the same celebrity level, and that's the issue, the factor is they need a celebrity, A-lister, actor, whatever, to do that. If you're not in that, you can't really compete with that unless they don't need it, in which case they'll just give it to the best person for the role. If the best person for the role also needs a profile and you don't have that profile, well, there's not much you can do about that. You shouldn't actually worry about it. So I don't think it's really a factor. I think those kind of roles, like, I mean, I did Final Fantasy Kingsglaive, and I was lucky enough to do a supporting role, which was mine. I've voiced fully and performed fully into the combat for, but I was also asked to do the combat and full performance capture without the voice, just as a reference, for the lead character, Nyx. They knew at that moment that they needed a big name for that role. Completely understandably, and they got the amazing, wonderful Aaron Paul to play Nyx, to voice Nyx. But the wonderful thing about performance capture is it takes multiple actors together to make a role. Sometimes you can have 5 people actually. You can have somebody skinned, a model or an actor or something. You can have a combat specialist, for instance, for stunts. You might have the actor who does the motion capture, and then you may have another actor maybe doing the performance capture. Then you may have another actor doing the voice work.
Right.
So for me, we were setting the character's rhythm in a very big way before they even knew who they wanted to voice it. And then, of course, the wonderfully talented Aaron Paul added his own work on top of my work and the work that I did with Takeshi Nzuru. And he created, obviously, the furtherment of that character. But it's truly collaborative. Now, obviously, in terms of Spotlight, I don't, you know, it's Aaron's character, you know, he voiced it. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But it was nice to be a part of creating that character. And of course, I got my own work to do in that. I got my own supporting character, which is wonderful. So for me, it was like bonus. And I think that's what performance capture and mocap often feels like. It's a bonus. You get to do all these things that you would never necessarily do in TV and film, especially if you have a wide skill set. So if you can do martial arts and combat, you might get asked to do the mocap of a game as well as be one of the characters in the game. If you are very good with your voice, you have a good voice craft, you may get asked to voice that character as well sometimes. So there's a lot of kind of interesting things, and especially when you're coming to characters that you would never get cast as, like you don't look right, which doesn't make a difference. They can just swap somebody else's skin over. Obviously with inclusivity and the diversity issue that the diversity, the fight for equality in diversity, I don't think it's appropriate, obviously, that I would ever play, for instance, an African-American. That's not appropriate. But I could definitely play another white person that has a different kind of look to the one I have, so wildly different that actually I would never be cast as that. That's cool. That's completely acceptable. I think it's interesting that, because then what it does is it takes the actor, you can't rely on this your face at all. In fact, your face is almost meaningless, which is great because it means you can get into the process of the craft of movement and the truth of a character fictionally. And that's what's going to sell the performance. It's like mask work in a way, or clowning almost, I guess, as well. So from that point of view, it's great that within reason, anybody can play anything. I would caveat by saying that men really shouldn't play women at all. Like,
I was just going to say, like, I've seen on some of the shoots that I've done, you know, there's definitely a lot of times where there'll be like female actors who are in for one specific part that is, you know, relatively small. And they'll be like, oh, actually, maybe we want another soldier, so we'll just give you a prop.
Here's the thing. female actors can play male roles.
Yes.
Absolutely. They absolutely can do it. Whereas male actors really tend to struggle with people, unless you're like on the side, you're like an amazing drag queen or something. In which case, I want to come to your show.
Yeah, exactly.
But unless you have like the understanding of what it is, the complexity of what it is to be female, I think male actors shouldn't do it. It's like about
it's a bit more of a struggle.
A little bit. It's a big struggle. I did it once, and that was not my choice. I was asked. It was at the end of a stunt, right? And there was asked to finish the stunt, to do the stunt and finish into the pose. So the female actor would then take over, and the pose was quite masculine, I want to say, when I ended up. But at the same time, they asked me to do a feminine pose. I was like, I don't know what that means either, because I don't understand what the masculine, feminine ideals are, and does it matter? Yeah. And can I just fucking land, please? So don't play, male actors don't play female roles, please.
Hey everyone, Zoe here from Game Dev London. Thanks for watching this highlight clip of the Game Dev London podcast. If you visit our website at gamedev.london, you'll find links to all of the places you can listen to the full version of this episode. You can also find information about our live events, our Twitch streams, game jams, competitions, and more. While you're there, why not come and join us in our Discord to speak to other developers in London and beyond? Hit subscribe and follow us for more clips like this. All the links mentioned today will be in the description below. Thanks again, and see you soon.